Ladies and gentlemen, I have wanted to talk about this crazy Igor Shesterkin situation for a while, and today is the day. One of the best goalies in the league, Shesterkin will become a UFA for the Rangers after this next year, which means that the Rangers and Shesterkin have already been talking a contract extension. But things haven't been going too well. They haven't progressed too far, and there is some pretty rough news here for the Rangers, especially with how much they might have to pay him in the end. So make sure you watch till the end as we break down all of this situation and what the contract could eventually look like, and hit that subscribe button if you're new for more hockey content just like this all throughout the year, every single weekday. Now we're going to break down what Shesterkin wants in a minute here, but first I want to talk about what Shesterkin is actually worth. You see at age 28, he's right smack dab in the prime of his career. And you can see for the past 4 seasons, he's been making just $5.6 million. One heck of a contract and certainly playing above that. But you look at it, and ever since Shesterkin has come into the league, he's been one of the best goaltenders out there. You can see immediately putting up a .932 save percentage in 12 games, really paved the way for what we would see in the future, and a .916 save percentage the year after that. And then in his first season, playing a ton of games, he rose even more, playing his best season, getting a .935 save percentage, and looking truly dominant. He did take a slight step back in 2023, but I do think the save percentage is a little bit lower than the actual play there. There were some inconsistencies. The Rangers were weird around him. I would say this last year, though, in 2024, the save percentage is a lot more right. There were some weird moments, especially in the first half for Shesterkin, figuring his way out throughout the year. It got better, and of course, by the playoffs, he was a much better player, but there were some growing pains for sure. Now, how much you think Shesterkin is worth is really dependent on how much you see last year as a bit of a fluke. If you see him more as the 2022 type goaltender, then he's the best goalie in the league, no doubt. But if Shesterkin is still at this level where he's great but not the best goaltender in the world, then that really changes the value, because what Shesterkin is asking for, if he is just going to be that great goaltender, is a little bit ludicrous. I'm personally more on the side that the Rangers secretly need to pay him as much as humanly possible, because although the team I think around him is decent, I don't think it's ever going to be this unreal team without him, or at least a Stanley Cup winning team without him. I mean, the forward group has some good players, has some good highlights. Artemi, Panarin, Trocheck had a great year last season, and you have some great players that can be great, like Kreider, like Lafreniere in the steps that he's taken, like Zibanejad as well. But then you go on the defense, and again, there are highlights there. Fox, of course, but Lindgren has been inconsistent, has been injured. Trouba has his rough moments. Keandre Miller took a little bit of a step back last year, and you got young players like Schneider and Jones still finding their way. So I would say defensively, the team still has a lot more room to grow, a lot better to get. But Shesterkin over the years has been able to fill out those holes and make the Rangers look maybe better than they have been. But then you have times where last year, Jonathan Quick, I think there were points where he was outplaying Igor Shesterkin and potentially winning that starter job at different points in the season. You can see he ended up with a .911 save percentage in 27 games. Not as good as Shesterkin, and a goal saved would have expected is about 5 less than Shesterkin's season-wide total. But I think Quick was fantastic in that backup role and showed that somebody else can play goal besides Shesterkin for the Rangers, which is a pretty big revelation. I think no matter all of this, considering his age, considering the prime and how valuable he is to the Rangers, he will become one of the highest paid goaltenders in the NHL. But according to Shesterkin, he really wants to reset the goalie market, and that's not great news for the Rangers here. Now, before we keep going, I first want to talk to you guys about today's sponsor, BetUS. They just released a ton of new odds for the NHL season. You can go through now and go through individual players. You can go through players to score 40 goals plus. Right now, you got Artemi Panarin around plus 300. And it's interesting because he scored 49 goals last year. If you think he'll repeat that, that's some pretty good odds there. You can go through as well the Rangers points too, if you want to go through that. Right now, minus 115 for both the over and under at 100.5. You can even go through individual players with the total goals. Right now, Zibanejad over under 29.5 too. And if you're really confident the Rangers going all the way and winning the Stanley Cup, right now their odds are at plus 1,200. If you put just $5 down, you can win 60 by the end of the season. And of course, with code YouTube150, BetUS making it as easy as possible to join. You'll get an 150% incentive bonus on your first deposit and 125% incentive bonus on your next 2 deposits there. The best time to start is now, and thank you to BetUS for sponsoring sponsor in today's video. We have this section in a recent Hockey Writers article talking about Shesterkin and his contract situation, saying that our first staple of The Athletic cites comments from Rangers goaltender Igor Shesterkin that he's not thinking about his contract situation heading into the season. However, his comments this week have left the door open for a bit of doubt to creep in regarding his future and long-term commitment to staying with the Rangers if they don't offer up the money he might be seeking. Shesterkin said, "I love the team, I love the fans, so of course it will be great to stay here. But you never know what's going to happen." It's the last comment that has some fans wondering. It might mean nothing, but whenever a player says you never know, it tends to suggest they might be open to other options. And this is a pretty rough quote for sure. I mean, in contract negotiations, you obviously want to leave the possibility out there open to bring some leverage onto your own side, but it felt a little bit, I don't know, saddening, I think, for Shesterkin that he hasn't been signed yet, that they haven't been able to make a deal happen, and that you never know situation, it's not a good sign either. What's clearly obvious is that for Shesterkin, he wants to stay a Ranger. He loves the team. He loves the franchise, loves the fans there. But if you don't give up that money, he might be out of there in no time flat. Now, I want you guys to think for a second here, how much on a long-term deal would you give to Igor Shesterkin if you were the Rangers? Would it be 10 million, 11 million? Well, we're about to get into what he is asking for. And according to Molly Walker of the New York Post, they broke the story and added that Shesterkin might be seeking as much as 12 million per season. Adam Herman argues the Rangers will have little choice but to pay Igor Shesterkin because he has a huge weakness for the team, which is the Rangers won the President's Trophy, but despite finishing 11th in expected goals and more drastically 23rd at 5-on-5, if he's not in goal for them, they aren't nearly as good. He doesn't crack when the Rangers allow a ton of shots against, and that is incredibly important considering the holes that Shesterkin has always filled for this Rangers team. I mean, going back to that 2022 season, there were some major weaknesses for that roster all around, but Shesterkin was able to make it a lot more palatable. And considering his clutch gene, considering just how consistent he was that year, it really was the start of Shesterkin making sure these problems for the Rangers didn't matter nearly as much. Of course, they would matter in the playoffs when they would eventually lose, but regular season-wise, you wouldn't think there was much of a problem. Until you started to really dissect what the Rangers were, started to watch them, started to see the results they were putting up, and you could start to see that Shesterkin was really carrying them in a lot of ways. I think his worth has maybe slightly decreased since then. At least I think the Rangers have gotten a little bit better structurally around him, but it hasn't been this massive difference. The Rangers still have some pretty massive holes here defensively that Shesterkin still has to bail them out of. And then we go on to this last quote here. Shesterkin wants to reset the goalie market. TSN's Pierre LeBrun said on the latest TSN Insider Trading report that Igor Shesterkin is making things more and more difficult for the Rangers, suggesting he's already turned down a massive offer that exceeds what Carey Price was making for the Montreal Canadiens. LeBrun reports that Shesterkin and his people are looking to reset the market on goalies. Needless to say, he is not taking any kind of team-friendly deal to stay with the Rangers, and given that he's told the organization he won't negotiate after the season starts, this situation is getting complicated. LeBrun reports that Shesterkin wants to blast through comparable contracts for net minors like Connor Hellebuck, Jussi Saros, and Ilya Sorokin. Now we have a couple of pretty big points here to talk about, obviously. The first one, though, that I want to mention is that Shesterkin has made it abundantly clear that if there's not a contract signed before the season starts, he does not want to talk about it during the season. So if they don't get a deal done, he's going to be going potentially into free agency without a deal. Now, they can discuss after the season ends, after the offseason, before free agency starts, but there's a pretty tight window there, especially if the Rangers were to go far into the playoffs. I mean, this is something that I think the Panthers had to deal with quite a bit. They had a ton of UFAs after their championship run, and it made things harder with those UFAs because they had so little time to sign all these guys and make that cap work. For the Rangers, it could be a similar situation. Even if they were to win the Stanley Cup, which would be the dream scenario, their star goaltender might not be coming back. But of course, we've heard now the Shesterkin is looking for $12 million, and it makes sense that he wouldn't reject a deal that exceeded what Carey Price met, because even if it was 10.7, it doesn't even look like that's enough for Shesterkin. Maybe even 11 million isn't enough for Shesterkin to get a deal done right now. You look at the biggest contracts goalie-wise in the NHL, and you can see there's only been a couple that have even exceeded $10 million. Sergei Bobrovsky, of course, and his infamous $10 million deal, which has worked now for the Florida Panthers, but you also got Carey Price's $10.5 million deal. But no goalie has ever even come close to $11 million, and that includes players like Andre Vasilevsky, Connor Hellebuyck, who signed for $8.5 million just a year ago, which is looking like a steal, by the way. But you even got Ilya Sorokin at 8.2, UC Saros is around the $7.7 million range, and all these goaltenders are signing for their primes. And I get that Shesterkin wants to get the bag. He wants to make sure that goalies are able to set this new level. And I will say in some ways you can make the case that goalies maybe have been underpaid since the Bobrovsky contract, because I think that's maybe scared some teams away from giving out these big deals. But there's a difference between trying to reset the goalie market and trying to just go absolutely overboard. And I think Shesterkin might be in that camp right now, because I think you could reset the goalie market by just getting $10 million. I think that could really set a new precedent for goalies going forward. Maybe even 11 if you wanted to go absolutely crazy and go for the highest paid goaltender in NHL history. You could go for that, and I could see that. But $12 million, that's asking, I think, for a little bit too much here. Now, for a lot of the top end of the NHL goalie-wise, you can make the case that when they're playing their best, when they're at the top of their game, that they could be worth $12 million, could be worth the most money on any single given team. But the problem is, so many of these guys are so rarely consistent. I mean, even the brand of consistency in a player like Andre Vasilevsky has, I say, fallen off over the last year. He's somebody that I think could rebound in a way, but he's somebody that hasn't perfectly put up great season after great season like you can really rely on with a lot of the top end forwards. I mean, Connor McDavid is never going to go down to a 60-point season. That's just impossible for him. He's always going to be at that insane level. With goaltenders, you can't count on that. Even the greats, the gods of this league, have their human moments, and Shesterkin is one of the best cases out there. He had a godly 2022, one of the best seasons we've seen in the modern era. But since then, he's been a lot more great rather than God. And I think what we've seen in the goalie market since then has been a little bit of a correction. Since giving out players like Sergei Bobrovsky $10 million, I think GMs have been a lot more wary over the inconsistencies in goaltending. And there are obviously going to be differences because of just pure value to the team. I mean, I think that's a reason why a player like Bobrovsky was able to get what he did, because the Panthers were so desperate for a starter back then. But in the case of Shesterkin, even though he is so valuable to the Rangers and he knows that, I think asking for $12 million is going to be a really interesting ask. I think if he goes to UFA, he could get close to that, but I'm not convinced he's going to get that number. Not in my book. Maybe if he has another godly 2022 season coming up here and he goes into UFA, that could be a potential option. But I just look at what the goalie market has shown, what we've seen with other goaltenders, and they just haven't come anywhere close to that. You look at what Hellebuyck was able to get, just an $8.5 million deal. Also, the Canadian factor there too, and especially for an American player that could have de-incentivized him, but he still signed for 8.5, and you can make the case that he's been a lot more consistent than Shesterkin has been over the past couple of years. He's someone that a 920 save percentage, a 921 save percentage, has maybe been a better goaltender recently. Maybe not in terms of the playoff statistics, but in terms of what he's been able to do regular season wise, his full body of work. The fact that he was able to get 8.5 was honestly pretty crazy, but I think that set the goalie market, and we're starting to see the other contracts kind of bend around that. Shesterkin is obviously trying to change that, try to make goalies a lot higher paid, and I can commend that. But at the same time, I think he has to get a little bit more realistic here. Now, I don't see $12 million coming here for Shesterkin, but what I do see is still a pretty massive contract. I do think Shesterkin, no matter what, will end up being the highest paid goalie in the NHL after this next deal. I think it'll probably settle around $11 million or so, which I think if Shesterkin is able to play at a high level, could be fair for the next 8 years. I think he could definitely be worth that, especially for the Rangers, although it'll definitely strap them quite a bit. You're losing about $6 million there off his last contract. It's a situation you had to accept eventually. I could talk all I want about how I don't know if Shesterkin is going to get that type of bag at $12 million, even more so than that if he really wants to go crazy. But Shesterkin has all the leverage. He has all the value here from the Rangers. And New York is not in a position where they're very well set up to have Shesterkin leave. I mean, Dylan Garand, I think, is a solid goaltending prospect, but I don't think he's going to be a starter. I don't think he's going to be this great player. I think he would have been perfect as a backup to Shesterkin coming up, but I don't think he's going to be taking the reins from Shesterkin and making the Rangers love him instead. I think it would be a pretty horrible situation for the Rangers to lose this type of player. They could try to get another starter in free agency or something, but that's going to be a tall order for the Rangers. They have to keep Shesterkin no matter what, and Igor obviously realizes that and knows he can get as much as humanly possible. It's a pretty similar situation to what the Bruins are now facing with Swayman, where he, especially with the Ullmark trade, knows how valuable he is to the team, knows how valuable goaltending can be, and he's making them pay for it too. Now, admittedly, I would like to see Shesterkin settle for quite a bit of low money because Jake Ottinger will be a UFA after this year, and I can't have this man making $12 million. He is worth that to me. He's my best boy, but I just can't. If that happens, then Jake Ottinger is going to be asking for a lot of dough, and the Stars just cannot afford that whatsoever. And quite frankly, I think we should have seen a goaltender by now break the 10 million mark again. I was sure that Connor Hellebuck was going to do that he was really going to ask a lot from Winnipeg, but he took a big discount, I would say, for them. And hey, I mean, for the Jets, maybe they'll have some more playoff success because of it. We'll have to wait and see on that, but it's going to be a really interesting negotiation here. And of course, on the channel, we are going to be covering all of it, so make sure you don't go anywhere. But I'd love to hear your thoughts down below on what you guys think of this Shesterkin situation. How much do you think he's worth? How much do you think he'll get from the Rangers? And what do you see that contract potentially looking like? Do you see him testing free agency? Do you see him going out? I would love to hear your thoughts down below. And of course, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell if you haven't already. Comment down below your thoughts and share the video with all the hockey, all the Rangers fans you guys know online. And click on this card for all of my trainer content right in one playlist. My name is Nathan, and I will see you guys in the next one. Have a fantastic hockey day. And goodbye. And a big thank you to BetUS for sponsoring today's video.